Welcome to Inside Games Daily, the only gaming news show brave enough to play a PlayStation game on the Xbox.
Oh, the worlds are colliding, Bruce. You're pouring Pepsi into a Coca-Cola bottle. Is that console's going to start rattling and smoking? Controller's going to explode in your hands? Make sure to wear protective eyewear is what we're saying.
I don't know if Lawrence knows that there are Xbox games on PlayStation. You know that, right?
Well, yeah. Well, we're used to that now. This is all reminding me of when Sonic finally released on the GameCube. Oh, the eras we've lived through, yeah.
Xbox announced today that Helldivers 2 is coming to Xbox Series X and S on August 26th.
It's happy news, which is kind of needed for Xbox right now. This is just one day after Xbox canceled untold number of unannounced games in addition to Everwild and Perfect Dark. But they did manage to land what is the rarest fish of them all, a PlayStation-published game.
That's right. This is technically the first PlayStation-published game on an Xbox. The second closest is MLB The Show. That game is published by Sony Interactive Entertainment on PlayStation platforms, but by MLB Advanced Media on non-PlayStation platforms like the Xbox.
Yeah, so soon, I guess, we'll get to launch Helldivers and see the Sony Interactive Entertainment logo on our Xbox consoles. What a world. Yes, this is truly a historic occasion, but don't go expecting Sony's premier single-player games. You know, Ghost of Tsushima, God of War, Spider-Man. They're unlikely to make the leap to Xbox console anytime soon.
In the past, PlayStation Studio Business Group CEO Herman Hulst has articulated a separate business strategy that they apply to their banner single-player games and service titles.
Yeah, I had kind of seen this pattern, and then Hulst just said it, directly in words, which is really nice. This is back in 2024. It was at a public business presentation. Hulst said, and this is a bit of a long quote, but it spells out exactly what they're thinking. Hulst said, quote, "On the live service side, we are releasing our titles simultaneously, so day and date, on PlayStation 5 and PC. But with our tentpole titles, our single-player narrative-driven titles that are the backbone of what PlayStation Studios has delivered in recent years, and in our history, we take a more strategic approach and we introduce our great franchises to new audiences, and we're finding new audiences that are potentially going to be very interested in playing, for example, sequels on the PlayStation platform."
Sounds about right. While Hulst was only talking about PS5 and PC at the time, it's easy to see the strategy extend to Xbox consoles as well.
Yeah, now that it seems to be. So what we see happening is the prestige single-player games will enjoy a window of exclusivity on the PlayStation console, designed to drive people to that platform, because, PlayStation's business value now is expanding the install base of the PlayStation platform itself, getting people to sign into PlayStation Network, and most of all, buying things on the PlayStation Store.
Service games, however, live and die on their active player base, which means you want more players playing them regardless of platform.
Yeah. Reaching new and active players is direct revenue versus the upfront cost of a single-player game. Also, this is kind of a fuzzy point, but service games don't really hold that same prestige or, the cachet. They're not necessarily system sellers, at least not yet. So, Spider-Man being exclusive to PlayStation, that kind of drives up the oomph of the platform itself. Helldivers is not really seen in the same way, but it's still really fun and drives a fair amount of business.
So, provided Marathon survives on the market for a year or more, it's possible that game could come to Xbox. And I don't think it'll go immediately to Xbox, but that might have a shorter window of exclusivity, depending on how Marathon does.
Yeah, and Bungie's already publishing on Xbox with Destiny. So that division already knows how to do it, and yes, they might need as many players as they can get as quickly as they can get them. So if we summarize all this, incorporate Helldivers coming to Xbox, here's kind of what we see PlayStation's new release strategy being.
So single-player games launch on PlayStation and hit PC about a year after, which is kind of what we've seen. It's give or take, it's like 6 months, a year, something like that. Likely never coming to an Xbox console. Then the service games simultaneously launch on PlayStation and PC, coming to Xbox about a year later. Helldivers took about a year and a half.
Yeah. But it's, the first one making the journey. I expect it'll be faster, especially if it's a success in terms of business. Now, I know the obvious thing to say is, well, single-player games can still benefit from that, and they can. But I think in PlayStation's view of things, it's more valuable to drive interest and prestige in the PlayStation platform and ecosystem itself, versus diluting that and spreading it around. In exchange, let's say you get an Xbox player on Helldivers and they're paying $30 every quarter buying those new Hell bonds. That's worth money over there too. And since it doesn't have the same brand cachet, it seems like it's a win-win all around.
Well, Lawrence meant to say war bonds, by the way, just so you know.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
I don't want anybody to be like, Lawrence, it's a war bond, not a hell bond, or whatever you said. It should be called a hell bond, though. Hell bond's pretty cool. So this isn't the first time that Helldivers managed to sway PlayStation policy as well. After launching without any kind of region locking, the Helldivers community didn't react too kindly to the region locks suddenly being enforced, which happened like 2 or 3 months after the release.
Yeah, I remember Johan Palstedt being very public, very clear that those region locks were publisher Sony's mandate, and even admitting that they were part of the publishing agreement, but he managed to negotiate them being delayed. But by exposing this issue and kind of showing that it's something that could be moved around, they managed to sway it back. Only recently, Helldivers 2 completely removed their region locking on PC, and several other PlayStation PC games have now followed suit. Not all of them, but a lot of them. So that's pretty neat.
Yeah, also on that same, all of that commotion that happened, PlayStation was forcing people to create a PlayStation account to link with their Helldivers account they were playing on PC, and that was a big deal too. I think they've foregone that. I think that's gone now. So it'll be really interesting to see if they force that on Xbox, actually.
That will be really interesting.
Yeah.
That I took as one of the knock-on benefits. Like, of course you get the money, but a benefit of launching on other platforms, you start to expand your ecosystem and your footprint to those users. So if you force people to log in on PC, then you get their emails, you can send them marketing, and you get their player information.
Lawrence, I have a theory about what happened here. I have a theory that Xbox paid a bunch of money to get Helldivers 2. And I think Sony sort of was like, yeah, all right. I think Xbox, Microsoft wore them down. And I don't know that we'll ever know how much money changed hands between Microsoft and Sony to get Helldivers 2 to Xbox. So I don't think that this was a Sony-led initiative. I don't think that Sony, I'm sure like Sony or PlayStation was like, sure, why not? You know, whatever, if the money's right. But I don't think they went to Microsoft and said, hey, we're going to put Helldivers 2 on Xbox. Is that cool with you, Phil Spencer? I don't think so. I think Phil Spencer went hat in hand to Sony and said, we need something else on Xbox because right now we don't have a lot of these, you know, really successful service games like a Helldivers. And then Sony went, yeah, pay us $100 million. And Microsoft was like, done. So that's what I think. Now, I don't know that for sure. Obviously, this is just me totally guessing. But that's what this feels like to me, because Sony really always has the upper hand when it comes to these little console wars and exclusivity things. So that's... And also, it would be really, really bad if they were like on the heels of laying off whatever it was, you know, 9,000 people at Microsoft and a bunch of people through Xbox. And then the next day after being like, hey, we paid $100 million for Helldivers. Yay! But that's what I think happened.
It's possible. I think you're correct about Microsoft being the initiator of the conversation. My gut, you know, my headcanon here is that this is downstream of the successful publishing agreements that Microsoft has made with PlayStation. Forza Horizon 5 is doing super, super well on PlayStation, and PlayStation is enjoying the benefit of that. You know, they get their store cut. So they're pretty happy, and they are now multiple months into collaborating with their former direct competitor, and both parties are benefiting. And I think once that money starts to hit the desk, then suddenly follow-up deals become a lot easier to grease the wheels on. So yeah, Hellblade 2 is coming out soon as well. So I think it's just like the emails started going back and forth. The emails led to money, and suddenly all these managers are like, why were we waiting so long? And I think a lot of consumers are saying the same thing too. So then if it's like, if you land a fish, you know, if you're the person who inked the Forza Horizon 5 deal, then suddenly maybe managers on the PlayStation side are like, oh, we could be in charge of like finding new business for Helldivers. So I think suddenly once the money starts circulating, people find a lot of more motivation to strike these deals when otherwise they may not have sent the email in the first place, and it certainly wouldn't have been replied to.
Yeah, you know what, Lawrence? I think you're totally right. I think a mash of our two theories together is probably exactly what happened.
Could be like, we gave you something. Come on, like you're getting all that Forza Horizon 5 money. Can't you do something? Find something in your sack of games that we all benefit from too.
Yeah, because this was Helldivers 2. People asked me for, months. They were asking me like, do you think this will come to Xbox? And I was like, it's going to be like 2 years. I was like, it's going to be a long time if it ever comes, because it's been selling like crazy for a really long time. So I also take these deals to mean that Helldivers has sort of capped out at users. Now they have a lot of people playing, which is awesome, and they always have the influx of, you know, whatever new content and new players. But I think they probably capped out there, and then they need to expand their audience right around this time.
Yeah, and that's what you need new platforms for. So Xbox, Switch 2, I could see that happening pretty shortly.
Ooh, yeah.
And then what's funny to me to think about this is like, it may not come to Xbox console, but it's already on a ROG Xbox Ally, you know? So you can play Helldivers, you can play Spider-Man on a ROG Xbox Ally if you wanted to. Those, the brand walls are starting to get real fuzzy, provided that PC is the link connecting them all. What's going to be weird to me is if Helldivers hits Game Pass. That's going to be freaky. But I could see that again if you're going down the funnel of user acquisition. You know, it's premium payment, then it's like subscription service, then free to play, I guess is under that. So who knows? Yeah, 2 years from now. I'm just thinking, I just need those achievements, man. I need those Helldivers achievements. That means I got to start all over. Oh, wait. And we cast our eyes to the future yet again, looking all the way to Lawrence's preview corner. Yes, the previews from Summer Game Fest are still trickling out. Today we've got Absolum, which is a kind of a 2D Hades sort of beat 'em up game. This is kind of similar to Capcom's Dungeons and Dragons beat 'em ups from a million years ago, if you remember those. But it's essentially like like Streets of Rage, a 2D brawler game, but it's got more of an RPG slant and more of like a roguelike, like I said, sort of Hades style slant. So when you're playing the game, you see this map of all these nodes, and each node is like a zone that you go into and beat up a lot of enemies. But as you play, what I like about it is that it's a lot more explicit about progress. So on this sort of map of level nodes that you go into, you can pick up quests, and then the quest will actually be marked on the map. So you know, okay, this run, I'm going to try to get to that area and resolve this quest, and then progress the overall game, eventually dying and restarting. But the game feel itself is really sharp. It's another thing that it has in common with Hades, even though it's a different kind of game. There's just a really good, percussive staccato, to use the most pretentious phrase I could summon up. Whenever you're beating up enemies, it's like blap, 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 blam, and then you're just like wrecking enemies, and the sound effects make it feel really rhythmic and fun. And in addition to that, there's a lot of arcade action, so you can bounce enemies off of walls and do these kind of cool combos. It's got some good foundational beat 'em up mechanics. Basically, you can dash into enemies to parry their attack, or you attack into their attack to parry them, but it has stricter timing. So it's got that sort of like, there's a forgiving window that you can learn, or that you can use to tune in the timing of enemy attacks. And then once you've mastered it, then you can be landing parries left and right. It's pretty cool. It's very approachable, very smooth. I like seeing the sort of Hades format of game applied to other genres. There's no release date on it yet. Right now it's TBA 2025, but there is a demo on Steam if you want to check it out. So you can download that for free. Thank you, publisher.emu, for inviting me to try out the game. I had a lot of fun with it. Check it out.
Hey, thanks again, Lawrence, for the preview corner. And little note to the viewer, he always spells corner with a K. I don't know why, but Lawrence always puts law preview corner, but then corner with a K. I'm not sure.
This feels right. I feel like, I guess what I imagine is the graphic, but then the K like kind of falls and swings a little bit. That's just in my head. I don't know. A little happy jingle.
Corner's spelled with a C.
Yeah, but it's whimsical this way.
I know. I'm just kidding around. I'm totally. We'd like to thank 2 Inside Games patrons whose patriotism to sweet lady managed democracy and video games is so strong, it overflowed into direct support for this show on the Patreon. Brian Cosner and Kyle Heaton. Salute.